All right, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who are joining me at the auditorium, welcome to the HIT Foundation. I think there are many of you who are also joining us online on Zoom. So very good afternoon to all of you who are in Singapore and around us in the region. And those of you from other parts of the world further away, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us today at the HIT Foundation Dialogue. Today, we are very, very honored to co-organize this dialogue in partnership with Republic Polytechnic, a long-standing partner of the HIT Foundation, whom we have had the pleasure of working with for quite a number of years. And joining us today from Republic Polytechnic, we have two of their esteemed academics, the Principal Lecturer, Mr. David Chin, and Senior Lecturer, Ms. Josephine Tay. But why have we invited this group from Republic Polytechnic, and what are we talking today? So before I introduce today's session, I'm going to introduce a little bit about the HIT Foundation and who we are, because I do see a lot of new faces in the room today, and I hope also on Zoom we have a lot of new people joining us. So for those of you who may know, the HIT Foundation was started in 2013 as a philanthropic foundation that was tasked with helping to improve education outcomes across developing Southeast Asia. Many of the familiar faces in the room I've seen throughout my tenure at the foundation and for a number of years will be very familiar with the education side of our work. But I'm not sure how many of you know that in 2019, we added healthcare as a second pillar of our work. And here we looked at healthcare from different aspects. We looked at it from the marriage between traditional practices and modern Western medicine. We looked at healthcare and education. What are the correlations between the two? And when this topic was raised, we thought it was a very meaningful topic. It was a topic that looked at healthcare and a challenge that not just Singapore, but many other countries across the world are going to be facing: an aging population and declining cognitive abilities among the aged. This is going to be an economic burden on many societies. This will be a social burden. But these academics have come up with an interesting way of looking at the problem. How about we try to think of memory? How about we try to think of one's cognitive abilities as they age? Kind of like how we think about any other muscle, right? If we train it, if we work it, can it get better? So we are quite excited when our friends at Republic Polytechnic shared this program that they've been running with us. So we are at the HIT Foundation, we're very happy to work with them to put together this evening's talk. So I think I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Vignesh, and I will be your MC and also the moderator for today's session. So without any further ado, I'm going to very briefly share with you a little bit about our two speakers, Mr. David Chin, who's a Principal Lecturer at Republic Polytechnic. He's a trained Feuerstein instrument enrichment mediator who started doing action research on mediated learning experience in 2012. I'm not going to read his whole bio because it is extremely distinguished and it's up there on the screen for all of you to see. But also joining him, we have Ms. Josephine Tay, a senior lecturer from Republic Polytechnic, who has been an educator and coach developer for more than a decade in the fields of physical education, science, and sports coaching. And ladies and gentlemen, we're also very, very privileged this evening to have joining with us a participant of this program to share some of her experiences of taking part in this program. It's a little surprise for you all later in the session, but I think we're very privileged to have Ms. Zaiton join us this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let me introduce Mr. David Chin to start today's sharing. David, please.
Thanks, Vignesh, and thanks to the HIT Foundation for having us from RP. Welcome all of you for spending your evening with us. I am going to talk a little bit about this topic of recreating memory. Now, how many of you actually know someone who has dementia or age-related memory issues? Okay, a lot of you, myself included. My mother-in-law has dementia, and I think I spoke to at least one of you out there that says that you also have a parent that you're a caregiver to, and it's a huge burden, right? And one of the things that we realize is that when you are in the age group, you have this superpower, and that's called being invisible. And as you get more and more old, you realize that sometimes when you sit down and you're kind of lost and they don't say anything. And this is the group of people that we really want to reach out to, right? Because even though you're in the age group, we don't want you to go down that pathway where you just get into this space where no one actually looks at you or bothers about you. And we think that we have found something that can address that. Now, we know these statistics. Now, yesterday's paper, this was just updated. So right now, if you're 60 and above, you're not 1 in 10, you're 1 in 11. This shows over the last 10 years where we have done all the health programs by the Singapore Health Promotion Board, etc. There's been some effect. So we've actually managed to slow this down a little bit. But if you're here and you're 80 and above, if there's any two of you, one of you probably has dementia. So that's kind of the statistics in Singapore today. If you look right now, the statistics show that around now we have about 92,000. The figures differ here and there. And the reason is because it's very hard to get accurate figures, but we are about 90,000 at this point in time. The scary part is that by 2030, the figure has been thrown up. A few years ago, it was 100,000, but just recently they updated that to 152,000 by 2030. We hope to be able to put a little slow that down a little bit. Now, this is interesting from the perspective that if you look at the WHO and the MOH figures, we know that by 2030, we'll have a 85 million plus people around the world with dementia. And the Singapore figures put it at 152 by 2030. But if you look closely, if you do proportion wise, the number of people with dementia in Singapore will rise higher than the global average. Okay, as you can see, the orange line is kind of going. Sorry, the blue bars are going above the orange lines. Now, this is just there's so much information out there, and we had to do a big averaging of all the figures out there from the different research papers that show how much would it cost Singapore in terms of taking care of someone who has dementia. And if you look at it, by 2030, we'll probably be spending about more than 10 billion if we just go on steady state now, right? It takes about 70, 80,000 a year in terms of total cost, which means that if I have to give up my job, if I have to employ a helper, if I have to send people for treatment, etc., it's a big cost, right? Not the government will pay for some of it, but in total, it's a huge sticker shock. Now, if you look at the green line, that's what our health ministry wants, at least in Singapore. They're trying to say that today we spend about $20 million on healthcare. And by 2030, we would prefer to spend 40 instead of 60, right? And the only way to do it is by preventive measures, which is why there's a huge focus on Healthy SG. If you're above a certain age, you'll be invited to sign up, please do, because it's our next wave of preventive health measures to make sure that we end up on the green line and not on the red line. Now, this covers more than dementia. It covers every single chronic health disease in Singapore, but we're looking at prevention. But when you talk about dementia, few people talk about prevention. They talk about let's turn our society into a dementia-friendly society. But we think that's not the right way to go. We think that we should be focusing on friendly is good, but we want to make sure that we can do something about it and be active about it. Okay. Yesterday's paper, dementia is the single largest contributor to the disability and care needs in the older adult population. So there you have it. There's cancer, there's chronic disease, but dementia takes the biggest bulk of it. If we can do something with this part of it, we can make a big difference. This is based on research by Professor Feuerstein, the late Professor Feuerstein. I've been researching his programs for the last 15 years, just trying it out, doing it. And his main theory is that we should never passively accept any kind of mental disability, right, including dementia, where we can actively do modifications. So his belief was that anybody can improve throughout life, right? And he's proven that over the last 60 years. It is only last year that they finally got the research out into the elderly space, into the people with mild cognitive impairments. And we took that and we immediately said, if you have it, we will run it in Singapore. And we got them down and we started the program in January this year. We ended in June. This is the program. So this is called the Thinking Memory Program. We obviously translated and adapted some of it to the local context, but this is what it is. So when we got the program, it's actually 180 pages of activities, well-researched to be able to recreate brain pathways. And the magic of this is that if you look at the research in Europe, there's 2 papers. I put one up here and you can Google it. After 45 hours of this program, which requires, as Vignesh said, a coach, right? Because you're not going to get through this alone. It requires a coach. So if you learn a sports skill, soccer, badminton, whatever, you need a sport coach to be able to improve your skill. So same thing here. We are all trained as cognitive coaches now. And it's something that we are going to work to train others. But once you have this skill, these pages become magic in a way, right? So if you give me a soccer ball and I'm not a soccer coach, it's just a ball to play around. But if you employ a coach, within 6 months, your kid, your child, whatever, will play soccer with a certain amount of skill. So this is the mindset that we're going with. And at RP, we do a lot of sport coaching, right? So we know how people learn a skill. We've just never applied it to how people learn in the brain, a thinking skill. So what we have done is that we have now considered the brain as a search engine. So we can create that search engine within people who are losing their memory or becoming cognitively less able. It is based on what we call instrument enrichment, which is part of the program. And we do this thing called Mediated Learning Experience, which Vignesh introduced, and I'll say a little bit more about it in a while. But the main outcome is that we are creating what we call structural cognitive modifiability. In very simple terms, that we're creating modifications in your brain that are permanent, right? And we can't do that in a short time. You can't teach soccer skills in 2 days. You need a season, 6 months. If you go Olympics, it's 4 years, right? So we need that time, and we need to be able to coach that in, right? And that's what we are going at here. So very simply, there's lots of research. I've just simplified it into one slide here. What is immediate learning experience? The key point is that it includes the cognitive coach, the one in purple, the mediator. Without the mediator, the brain does not rewire, right? Because there's no one to challenge you, right? You can't learn soccer on your own, more or less, right? Some people can, but by and large, you have a coach that accelerates your learning. In the same way, the human mediator here, what we've done is that when we give the task, we mediate the task. We actively filter to every participant what the task is about, what do they see, what do they get out of it, and based on their response, we will adjust their response to the task. If they find a task so difficult, we will find a window. So when someone can't do something, it is our responsibility to find out how to get through to them. Okay, whether we change the modality or we change the method or we use simpler language, whatever, right? But we take the full responsibility of reaching out to every single participant in our program. When we go in as mediators, every single session, and you'll see this in a while, the quality of the mediation is the most important. And whenever we do this mediation at the active aging centers in Singapore, we make sure that we're very intentional. We make sure that every single one of the people are responding to us. If they can't respond, again, it's not their fault, it's my fault. And I will make sure that I do something to get a response. Okay. We must always meet. So every page, they know why they're doing it. They know what is the meaning. It might look kind of random, but we say, okay, it's important for you to do this because it can impact some other part of your thinking. And we also do something called transcendence, which is bridging, which is perhaps the most important of the three or the four things here, which means that whatever skill they're learning on the spot, they are generalizing it as a principle, and they're learning how to use that concept that they just learned about memory, about thinking, about whatever, to apply it to something else. Only when you can generalize something in your head can you, is it transferable to another place. And once it's transferable, that's where the permanence comes in. It's not just locked to the page. We're trying to get out of the task as fast as possible. 180 pages, right? But once you're done, we say, okay, look up, don't do the page anymore. We want to talk about what you've learned and how you can move it elsewhere. So this is the program, and I'd just like to give a shout out. We have 5 people in the team, so it's not just 2 of us, it's 5 of us in total. We went through 6 months of training, on and off, 45 hours in total. And as we were going through that training, we were also mediating this program to about 40 people across 2 active aging centers, one in Chinatown and one in Woodlands. And we just really want to appreciate that their management was so open and so trusting of us. Random lecturers coming in and saying, hey, we want to do this. And they said, 60 hours, are you sure people are going to sign up or not? And we said, well, the only thing we can do is try. So we did a recruitment, and we said, this is research, right? You don't know whether you're going to be in the intervention or the control. That means the person receiving these 180 pages or the person in the next room playing Rummy-O. Okay, and so you just sign up, and we'll throw the dice, and whoever gets where. But once you sign up, we want you to commit for 60 hours. But because it's research, we say that anytime you're tired or you feel over-challenged, you're free to leave. We can't force you to stay because it's It's by voluntarism, right, in a way. So we actually had enough people signing up, and we ran. And because it was the first run on a pilot, no one paid anything for it. They all went in for free. All the 5 staff at RP that went in, we went in almost on our own time. We still had our regular classes, and we decided, and we're the first program in the school to do this on our own time, beyond our own workloads. And the Feuerstein Institute actually said that they would fund us. So they funded all the instruments. And so we appreciated that. And of course, RP that was willing to give us this chance to just do this pilot and let our passion run with this program. Because again, like you, we all felt that we all are going to reach that age one day soon. And we all also have parents and we know relatives and all that are in this space. So this is just for the people that do research. We had a control group, intervention group. We did a pre and post test, which is a mini mental state exam. Those of you in healthcare will know this is a simple interview. And we did a dynamic assessment, which is again just measures cognitive ability. Then we did this twice a week, 90-minute session and it lasted 15 weeks, but a lot more because of all the breaks, New Year and Chinese New Year, etc. At the end, we did the test, the pre and post test again. This is what we were trying to do. Now, we know we can coach the body, but can we coach the mind? So at RP, we're pretty good on the left, right? We know how to do this. So Josephine, who's a trained PE teacher, and I also do coach development. So when we get any coach, we will teach them, when you want to train an athlete, you first do a benchmark. You measure their tactical, technical, physical, psychological capabilities, and then you plan the program. And after 6 months, you measure this again to make sure that you move somewhere. Okay? But for thinking, there is no such construct until the Feuerstein Institute created this construct called input, elaboration, output. Simply means that every brain, in the thinking act, you are collecting information, you're processing it, and you're outputting it. And after the dynamic assessment, we were able to use technology to determine that we could actually measure these phases in the brain. And we'll show you a picture of that in a while. So this is one picture that we showed all the participants in the beginning, right? If you stay at home and watch your Korean drama the whole day and don't do anything, it's an inactive brain, your neuron looks like that. But if you go through this program with us and you learn how to engage and challenge yourself, it looks like that, okay? So any brain, as long as the cells are undead, but you got, I can't remember, it's probably 100 billion, I might get it wrong, but it's a humongous number. And even if you have dementia, the brain is shrinking, 100 billion, you minus half is still 50 billion. And if anyone's alive, we can still do this growth within the brain, right? And that's proven. We call it neuro-plasticity. And it doesn't mean it's only restricted to people without dementia, right? As long as it's alive, we can do something with it. This is the actual dynamic assessment. The participants suffered through about 6 hours of this, broke into 3 sessions or 4 sessions. And we brought them through abstract thinking. If this is a logical thinking test, we made them do elaboration, some mathematical sequencing, and some inferential thinking exercises. And this was really a battery of tests. It's very tiring. At the end of this set of tests in the pre-test, right? This is where a lot of the participants said, I hope that you put me into the Rummy-O group because I do not want to continue doing this. It's just too painful. Because this is a test we did, that's help, right? Because you need to do it on your own so that I can gauge where you're at. Okay, and this is what we found after the first pre-test, right? We found that, and I'm not giving you individual results because they're all blacked out, but in general, if you look at all the 40 people that we tested, the ability to input 50-50, right? That means they could collect information accurately. The ability to elaborate on that information, to process it once they had it was quite okay, right? But if we look at the output phase, right? The impulsive output was something that they didn't do very well in. It's an area of improvement. So they were very impulsive in their communication of a response. So they could think about it, but when they said something else, it's just a bit too impulsive. So we told them that because of this, when we mediate the pages, we told our staff, we will focus on telling them, okay, before you tell me the answer, hold first, check. Make sure you know what you're saying or what you want to say before you write something down, say something, speak something, right? And again, 60 hours of this, And in that sense, we started on this journey of helping them develop. Now, when at the end of it, or the midpoint, when we started looking at the responses coming in terms of feedback, we did some analysis and we realized certain things about the program. And I'll get my colleague Josephine to cover the next short section on that part about the actual program. So you're going to see the program and the participants in there.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so we got some feedback from the participants, and these were some of the areas that emerged. So the participants shared that they improved on their socio-emotional development, the skills. They had some sense of agency, so this related to sense of control, and they felt that they also improved in terms of their memory. Right, so this is what it looks like when the program is running at the center. So this one, oops, sorry. These at the bottom are all Kreta Ayer, and this one is at Woodlands. So at the start, when we asked them to join, they were like quite reluctant, and we didn't really give them answers. They were also a bit frustrated at the start. But slowly we got them to think more. We questioned them a lot. We had a lot of discussions. We engaged them. So it was very active discussions going on. And slowly they start to realize that, hey, I can think, and I don't need to get the answers from you straight away. Right, so I'm going to share what a typical minute in the program sounds like.
Partner and plan 由于和面粉之产品，因为由于是要用那个牛奶，还有那个什么一起加工来变成。
Okay, so you can see a lot of conversations going on, and participants are very happy. So a lot of simultaneous conversations. But the important thing is that at the end of the day, the mediator, which is our colleague here, she actually rounded up the discussion and to discuss about what they learned and how we can transfer it to their other aspects of their lives. So these are some of the feedback that we got from the participants themselves. So this is Madam Jenny Tan. Sense of control, sense of agency is related to being in control. Okay, so she actually shared that she noticed that the rubbish will collect at the corner of her house, and she didn't just not do anything about it. She felt that she could do something. So we had this orientation in space program or worksheet activity. So it allowed them to be more aware of orientation and direction. And so she analyzed the layout of her place, and she moved away the bench. So in the end, the problem was solved. Okay, so another example. So this is where she felt the sense of agency in terms of taking charge, that she can still learn, especially IT, AI, photography, which involves quite a bit of technology. So usually seniors, they may be a bit more wary about taking such courses. Okay, so she's changed her mindset after the program. So it's about being adaptable to learning new skills as well. So we talked a bit about sense of agency just now. So I'm going to explain what it is and why it is important to us. So I think all of us, we like to be in control. Okay, so when you do something that is of your own will, you feel in charge and you feel good. You feel that life has meaning. But as we age, this sense of agency tends to decrease. So there's this study conducted on a large-scale survey of Americans, and there was this statement that says, what happens in my life is beyond my control. And a larger percentage of older adults disagreed, okay, versus the younger adults. So meaning to say about 38% of the older adults, 40 years and above, they feel that they are in control. Sorry, they feel that they are, not in control, versus 20% who feel that they are not in control. So there's a higher percentage of older adults who feel that their life is out of their control. Okay, it starts in but around 50 years and it declines rapidly between 60 to 80. Of course, the author acknowledges that there is some reduction in the basic sense of agency due to physical limitation as someone ages, but there are neurocognitive factors that also come into play that's related to your thinking and your brain. Okay, so why is sense of agency important? It's important because it's associated with sense of control over your life. So it makes them have think about making better choices. So it's related to better health outcomes and better life outcomes. Okay. And why cognition is related to emotion. So cognition is about thinking skills. So when we go through this program, we make them think more, and hence they become more aware about why they're feeling a certain way. So they think about, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I crying? Why am I sad? And this sense of self-awareness will help them to become more understanding about themselves, as well as how they interact with others. They become more understanding and empathetic towards others as well. Okay, so that's the link between cognition to emotion. They become more aware. They are able to control and regulate their emotions better. Okay, so this is an example of the socio-emotional aspect where they collaborate. So there's peer learning. And these are two participants from Woodlands who actually, they were peer teaching each other. They were sharing their strategies for solving the dots problem. Okay, so it was self-initiated. We didn't ask them to write down the strategies. They just wrote down their own strategies and then they just freely shared among themselves during the break. So this is another example. So in our program, we teach them to think, to constantly reason and explain why they're feeling a certain way or why they see things from this certain perspective. And they are constantly analyzing problems and analyzing the situation. So yeah, this is one of the activities, the DOTS program that Madam Zaiton went through, and it actually, she shared that it helped her to organize and figure out what to do. Okay, so there was an issue with stray cats, and she actually identified the root cause as being that the female cat was attracting unwanted attention. And so she took some action and actually solved the problem. So this is another example where Eileen made use of this structure, think from the function to the memory, to help her to relate the things that she was going to buy for cooking, so the ingredients. So sometimes when you go to the market, you may forget certain things. So she used this, because in this activity, we get them to think about the relatedness of the products, why are they related or not, and it helps her to organize and find the relationships. Okay. So this is what success looks like. At the end of the program, all of them got a certificate from us. So it's first time in many, many years for quite a few of them. And it's also about them graduating, and there's also joy in suffering. Okay, so they feel a sense of accomplishment. We do also feel a huge sense of accomplishment. Okay, so these are some additional feedback from the participants, and I'm going to play the short video.
太难了啊！
The key things are is translated in English.
年轻的还可以，虽然是说很容易，起初那个好像会很难，坐下来有时候哦，你找到那个点哦，容易的你很高兴，你找不到的时候，哇，很压力。对啊，坐在那里哦，哎呦，真的辛苦。我就是这样的一个提议 ，OK， 谢谢。难道我在家里做帮忙的时候不慢吗？我家里有个40天40个钟头，我就慢慢做，一篇都做不出来。所以你说难不难？
但是从第一面到现在啊，一定会有进步，是吗？啊，有哪个点要不要做，还是难道不要做？
Must be continue, no such thing as
Wow.
Okay, so she went into English after that. So David was asking her from page 1 until now, have you improved? And she said yes. Okay, and then this one, another one.
Anything like, oh, don't worry.
In English.
代表 we study fast. We are very simple-minded. We don't think of any formula that can to look into the concept of doing anything. Really. For us, is that this is our daily routine. So there is no such thing as a standard concept. Then we don't use formula also in our daily life. Then I think that this program it helps to trigger our thinking point, to clear some obstacles that our mental block is open already.
Okay, the next one. This is one of my favorites. She learns how to be confident in being able to do things that she previously couldn't do.
画那个三角形啊，我画到我自己画到哦，很开心。我说 yes， 你们还记得吗？
我记得，那么现在比较容易是吗？你说你不可以，现在也是可以是吗？
Yeah, they're so happy. Okay, this is another one.
Mm.
所以有时候我受到鼓励啊，就好像不能过去啊，我会转换方向。
哇！
现在会头脑会这样转过来，再另外走一个方向来思考。
Yep, so she's learned to be more flexible in her thinking. Okay, this one, we are very honored to have her here personally, so I will not play her video. I will just invite her to come up here and share with us. Madam Zaiton.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Zaiton. I'm 76 this year. Right. Actually, I'm a volunteer with at the senior center. And of course, I'm here to share what is happening. I'm here to share my whatever takeaway that I can think of from the memory program. And I must say, this program is really fantastic because it makes me think a lot, really. Anyway, I learned to be patient, and of course, not only patient, I learned to be, shall I say, no, I'm very, very impulsive and less impulsive now because of this program exactly. It teach me a lot of lessons, I must say that again. Anyway, I am more analytical. I find it so difficult to pronounce that. Analytical, correct? Good. And when solving problem, it does help a lot. And so now I'm here to say before attending the program. I'm going to talk about before attending the program, okay? I have to refer this because I can't think of. Actually, I have that fear of getting into trouble, and at the same time, I'm fear of not only getting into trouble, I'm fear of hurting people's feeling. I have that fear even now, but still, at least it's improving a bit. And not only that, I'm very impulsive. Impulsive in the sense that without thinking, I just go straight away and do whatever I like. And after that, I regret. But with this program, it makes me think first, why, what? This question is always in me when I do things now. And that is before the program. I always like to jump into premature conclusion, you see. Now I'm going to talk about during the program. Just now was before the program. During the program, the facilitator will ask me to think about why and what. That's what I've been doing all the time, why and what. And not that alone, because it made me think in a certain way or come to a certain conclusion. When you have things in your mind, you'll be asking yourself, hey, even during the program, our lecturer, our teacher, one of them is David. Anyway, we all like you very much. And we hope you continue doing whatever you're doing. And especially, David had constantly remind me to slow down, read. With this look, with a smile, we go, all right, we will do whatever you instruct us to do. Anyway, we enjoyed the program and understand the instruction fully first before completing the activities. His advice is such that when I want to finish something quickly, I say, all right, because of your gentle talk and smile, and we all start looking at each other, let's do it. Anyway, we do enjoy your classes very much. Now, I want to talk about during the program. The facilitator will ask me to think why and what make me think in a certain way. But actually, this program helped me to take a step back to process and analyze the information and control my impulsiveness. I'm going to give you an example, okay? Actually, there's so many activities in it. And one of them is the analytic perception. Here, I learned to be systematic in analyzing challenges. There are so many activities there, but one of them that really is happening to me is that what happened to these activities is that by breaking them down into smaller parts, now this helps me to face problem calmly and think carefully. Break them down to identify the root causes and to generate a logical solution of what to do. This is one of the activities that always I will do, because when you have the impulsive thinking, you just do not have such thing. But now after this program, I tend to do all this. I'm going to give you an example, all right? A very simple example that is happened just recently about what happened to me after the program. I am of course, I am the volunteer at the senior center, but I'm in charge of brisk walking activity. Now, one morning, an elderly lady she tripped and fell. And while we were having our brisk walking activity, she's not from our group. She's not from our group at all, but just happened to be near and where we were. She was surrounded by a crowd, and this passerby started crowding around her. And actually, they were trying to help her, but she looked so upset and keep waving away. Normally in the past, you know what I'll do? I just look at it. Me being such a person, as I must say, I would have been afraid to be involved because I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling. And I would have minded my own business. And I would say, like a typical classic bystander effect, you know, the normal one, like, well, there's so many people there. So, But then, however, I stop and I go closer to her, closer look, and I notice what happened to her. Actually, she tripped on her pavade. You know what's pavade? Pavade. Tamil? Pesve mudiyade? No? Anybody of you speak Tamil here? Ah, beautiful. There you are. She's tripped on a pavade. Pavade is a long skirt normally used by the Indian lady. So this passerby, a lot of them were trying to help her and speak to her in English. But the funny part is that she just looked. I got a feeling she don't understand English. So I went closer. I went closer to her and said, well, I spoke to her in Tamil. And I asked a question like, are you okay? And all that. And to my surprise, she answered everything beautifully. So now I'm glad she answered all that. And then somebody said, hey, look, I'm going to call the ambulance. I said, no, you don't. Please wait. Because why? I needed to know more about her injuries. And I spoke to her. And actually, she was so embarrassed and she told me. She was so embarrassed because of she tripped and fell, you see. So she told me, look, it's very shameful. Can you please? What I did was clear the crowd just to get her relaxed. And once she relaxed, she goes on, blah, 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 in Tamil. I say, Yeringi, look, Yeringi. And then she looked at me and says, and I started saying, Yeringi Tamil, but it's a bit moody, are they? And she said, she opened her mouth and looked at me. And then she said, in Tamil, and what language are you talking to me then? And then we had a good laugh. Actually, I continued by saying, look, and I said, can you please speak? I may not be able to speak Tamil very well, but at the same time, can you please speak any other language, Malay? And she said, yeah. So we end up talking in Tamil and Malay just to help her. I'm glad somebody understands what I'm talking about. At least there's an Indian speaking person here. Anyway, we continue our conversation in Tamil and Malay, and she showed me her injured palm, her injured hand and knee. At the same time, plus the thorn that was at the lower part of her skirt that caused a trip. She's not giddy. And she said, I want to go. I said, no, don't go yet, please. I point out at the rear, look, there's a step there. Anyway, we are blocking the pathway. We are blocking the walkway. Let's move to the area that is step not far from there. And she said, okay. And when I want to help her up, she slapped my arm and said, that means she doesn't want me to help her. And I saw that she can walk and she can move. She seems to be okay. And we continue talking. At the same time, we managed to get her to call home and get her daughter to meet her. And I just escort her home. So here, the analytics perception training helped me to step back to analyze the situation, to notice the crowd. At the same time, see that the crowd did not understand what the lady needed. That the lady was distressed to have fallen in public and her injuries were not that serious and that she needed attention to or help. And that I'm able to speak her language. Now, this gives me the confidence to step up to help her instead of taking the easy way out. And I'm so happy about that. So that's part of my story. Did I say should we walk away home? Now, lastly, I have to say about this program, okay? That is, let me see whatever I wrote here. Yes, this program should be introduced to other centers as well. At the moment, I think there's only a few centers having this program. And you know why? As it entices them to think, like me, for example. Even though I'm 76 years old and I'm still happy to be able to do all this, whatever I'm doing now. And of course, it fights against degeneration. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaiton. Okay, you're my inspiration.
Bye.
Okay, so I'll just share two related studies that show the structural cognitive modifications relatively sustained, the effects are sustained. So in 1981, there was this study on school-going children, and there was a treatment group and there was a control group. So the treatment group had 200 hours of instrumental enrichment, which David shared earlier. So this memory program grew out from this IE. And the other group, the control group, had 200 hours of additional academic exposure. So the important thing is that in the post, after the treatment period, and also 3.5 years later when they redid the test, the IE group, that means the treatment group, actually had higher cognitive and academic functioning. So the changes were sustained and there were strong differences. That's because the IE provided tools of thinking and learning which actually stay with the participants. Okay, so that's the important thing. And it's not just for children. Okay, there's another study that was done in the US it was a 5-year study, so 1998 to 2004. It was conducted on senior citizens from 65 years old onwards. The average age was about 72 years. And so it was about 2,800 participants. And it showed that they had higher functioning even 5 years later. Okay, so a higher, less cognitive decline, higher memory and cognitive thinking even after 5 years. So this goes to show that whether you are young or you're old, these structural cognitive modifications can actually still work for you. Okay. Okay, so I'll pass the mic back to David, who will share the quantitative results of our pilot project.
Thanks, Josephine. Interesting story. Before we started, actually during the first few sessions, the participants complained about us. They said these teachers don't give us any answers. So they actually went to the AAC managers and said that these teachers are not good because when we were in school, we got the wrong answer. The teachers got us the right answer, and then we compared and we learned. Then we told them after 3 or 4 sessions, they figured that actually we're not going to give them the answers. And they said, we're not interested in your answers. We're interested in how you're thinking. Right? I'm not interested in your answers. I'm interested in how you're thinking. Right? So I mean, I couldn't imagine that at that age, the single mindset, right? For those of you from other countries, academics is very important, and they were all very competitive. They didn't want to get the wrong answer. They were also worried about getting wrong answers. We did tell them repeatedly, I don't care if you get the wrong answer. I'm really interested in how you're thinking. And I think it took, after 3 sessions, and then we had a nice continuation after that, where even before they were going to ask us for the answer, they checked back and said, okay, I know you're not going to tell me the answer, so I'm just going to think it through. And that was kind of the training that they had. So here are the pilot outcomes. This is the actual research. So we had a data analyst come in and do the research on all the data that was collected from the testing. And this is the most significant that we found, that based on the Ravens test, which tests logical reasoning and abstract thinking, there was a significant improvement in their capabilities after the after the whole program. And you can actually see the increase visually, but again, we can't use visuals in research. We use statistics, and it was a significant improvement. This one is not statistically significant. We did the memory interviews, the mini mental state exam, and it shows a slight increase. Now, the research figures didn't show significant increase, but you can see there's a slight trend upwards. We can't say that it's significant, but okay, so if you look here, this blue and orange shows their recall before and after. So again, their language, because you make them talk a lot, write a lot, before and after. And this green and blue here, the light blue, show the control group, which slows either similar or slight decline. Again, it is just indicative. There's nothing statistic about this, but we read it as we think there's something interesting worth looking at here. So in summary, a 60-hour program we did from Jan to June. We had significant improvements and some upward trends. 73 is the average age. And the interesting thing that someone else actually brought to our attention is that we started with 19 people at the start of the program, and we ended with 19. they said that for an elderly intervention like this, it's quite rare to ever have no one drop out at all. For 60 hours worth of like every week, day in, day out, every week, twice a week. And we had an average attendance of 94%. With, that means 3 missed classes per pax, and this is because they got the medical appointments and what have you, and we didn't give any incentive, right? It was just come down because we're here, and none of them dropped out even though they were welcome to report at any point in time. At the end, we didn't take any more videos because they got quite panicky when we turned the videos on. We just said, okay, just tell us some things that you got out of it at the very end, and they said they're better at talking because we made them talk so much. They're better at writing. One lady said, my friends are smarter. It's her friends that she dealt with are smarter, they are more sharp. And one person said we are more close after studying for 6 months together. Cognition was improved. Zaiton actually mentioned that you ask yourself questions now. I told her that that's actually called metacognition. It's an academic term for saying that you actually think about your thinking. But she didn't realize that was what was happening in her. And as you can see just now, she's actually very metacognitive about her daily life post rather than pre. She's an artist. She didn't mention that, right? When you ask her to show you the art, she'll show you, but she says she's not good at it. But when I see the art, it's fantastic, right? I can't draw like her. And she actually said she's more creative with her art, which is fantastic, right? And a lot of them, in the beginning, I cannot read, I cannot write. I cannot write because I haven't done so in many, many years. By the end of the program, they were all writing like crazy, right? And they even knew how to use their handphones to figure out how to write a Chinese word. They were helping one another. So in just 6 months, they learned a lot of things that they thought they couldn't do at the end. I think the one comment from Madam Esther is that at the end, when we did the graduation, she said, this is the most important moment after my retirement. So that was an interesting thing that happened. The AAC managers also noticed that the groups that were intervention were more close. They were a bit sharper. And they said one interesting thing, that if you go to any AAC now, you look at the programs, there's no cognitive programs, all physical, rubber band, aerobics, etc. And then maybe digital literacy and stuff, but there's no cognitive program. So why you're teaching everyone to be physically mobile, but no one's training the brain, right? So they said that if you can do more of this, that would be fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to end off by reiterating that we see actually cognition and emotion, memory, behavior as two sides of the same coin. We often look at the output, the behaviors, people are forgetting, whatever. We don't realize that everything that drives the output is driven by cognition. If for a moment, like we've done with the 2 pilot groups, we focus on the cognition, the rest of it solves itself. Now, notice in the program, and Zaiton will tell you this, we had no memory exercises, no card game, open to, can you remember all that? There's no memory training. We train the cognition. So when she wants to remember something now and the rest, they know it's not about memorizing, it's about knowing how to create the pathways to try and remember something. All they need to say is, we teach them, don't ever tell me, I can't remember. Just say, wait a minute, let me think for a while and I can find some anchors to tell you something that I can draw out. But they know the strategies already. It's become a neural pathway for them. And we believe that if you can train the cognition, you're training learning, right? So participants now, we don't want them to be locked to our program forever. Once the neural pathways are there, they learn how to learn on their own. And that, to us, equals health. If you look at this is a picture of the brain. And we often see skill, when someone learns a skill, what happens is that the fatty tissue, which is this fat here, creates a superhighway for the brain signals, which is why a soccer player can kick the ball and it goes in, because it's already a programmed route. After 60 hours, we realized that we can actually recreate this route for cognition, for thinking, for being analytic, for being visually, spatially more aware. Right? But it takes that amount of time because you can't change someone's brain thinking overnight. And it takes the very repetition, progressions, regressions, constant coaching in order for us to do that. This is again what success looks like. So this is the center that Zaiton is at. And it's this one has a bigger group, you know why? Because the control group, they were playing rummy opposite, they decided to come in and take the picture. So there's half the group here with the cert and half without. Another interesting thing is that we actually didn't cater to do the program with the control group. But what happened was that whenever the control group walks past our sessions, they will go play Rummy-O, right? And I talked to them and said, aren't you happy that you're in that group? Because you're having fun in there, right? Playing the game. They said, yeah, we're having fun. But we realized that when inside, we're doing the same thing every day over and over again. But out here, every time we come out, they're doing something different. So even they realized the power of some varied changes in your activity. And they are the ones who said, can you please do this program for us? So on our own time, I'm taking care of Chinatown now, and Josephine's taking care of Woodlands. And we have volunteered kind of with the support of RP to go in and do this same program for the control group as well, right? So this is not under research, it's just our own time. But that's the kind of stories that I'm going to, this is what we started and we analyzed it. And what we're going to call this program, we are applying for some funded research now. And we're going to call it the Sesame program. And why do we call it Sesame? Because it's for socio-emotional, self-agency, and memory. And if you recall the Alibaba story, right? When the guy says open sesame, the door opens and it opens the doorway to untold riches. And we're just having this conversation out there. I think we have some kind of program that we can unlock the door to the untold riches within someone's mind, even if you happen to be 65, 80, 90. We don't really care how old you are. We just know that there's something there we can unlock, and we're really excited about doing that. So with that, thank you, and I'll pass the time back to Vignesh.
Thank you very much, David. And can I invite both Josephine and Madam Zaito to join us as we do would you like to? As we do a short discussion. I realize that I will. So ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, do feel free to ask us any questions you would like on the Zoom platform. There are various chat options, on the Q&A. So feel free to ask any of the Q&A questions that you like. Usually I would start by asking a question from myself for our panelists, but I see so many questions on Zoom, and I'm sure there are many questions in the room. So I'm going to start by asking one of the questions that I see on Zoom, which I think is quite interesting because I think this is something that will come up. Can you share, especially Josephine and David, some of the examples of the exercise adopted for improving different components of thinking?
Okay, so we have one of them is this everyday platform where we get them first to remember what they bought in the last 30 days. So that's a start. And at the start, they are like, I can't remember, or they just write 1, 2 in that whole piece of paper. But after the conversations, we get them to think, okay, and they also share, oh, where were you? When was it? Which date? Shops and so on. So we taught them some strategies on how to think of the anchors. Okay, anchors are things or events that will help to trigger their memories. And from there, subsequently, they were able to recall more and more things to the extent that some of them even filled up the whole page after that. Yeah, then after that, we can still have some form of progression. So from 30 days, we go back to, okay, think back about the last 3 months. And then after that, we got them to add the dates. We get them to think about the different shops, the types of shops, big shops, small shops, cheap, more expensive things, things for special occasions, for people, different people in your life. So that helped them to come up with their own, they have more inputs after that. Yeah, so that's one of the activities. There's the other one that they like very much. We spent quite a lot of time on that. Is the organization of the dots. I think Zaiton can also attest to that. Is where I think just now you saw the diagram. One of the diagram they were drawing some fish figures. So at first, that's the most challenging activity in that particular segment. So we started off with easier ones like identifying squares, triangles, and so it gets harder and harder. And we also, yeah, so we can see this, thank you. So it gets harder and harder, but we do talk them through the strategies like, oh, where do you start? So then, for example, if this is a square, we'll ask them, so what makes a square a square? So then they will say things like 90 degrees, there's 4 equal sides and so on. And then we get them to look for those things, and that's how we progress from there. And by the last page, they can do this, find the different shapes. Can you identify the diagrams from the dots?
No. I've been writing notes of everything you said so I can go home and practice myself. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that, David? Okay, I think we have some questions from the room. Just a few ground rules. Please keep your questions very short. Do introduce yourself very quickly who you are. By the interest of time, please get to the point and keep your questions short. Sir, please. Use the mic, please. Thank you.
I'm Ilango from Singapore Polytechnic. This is an interesting talk. I appreciate that. Okay, I just want to know, because in the last slide, you told that imparting cognitive skills in a person improves the neural connection and showed that slide. So before the study and after the study, after imparting the cognitive skills, like running the program, can you quantitatively measure the, say, neural connections by using some advanced scanning or something? And how do you come to a conclusion that there are more neural connections after the cognitive skills imparted to the participant?
We don't know.
No.
We do know based on the data analytics of the Raven's cognitive test. We were not able to deal with medical things like neuroimaging because none of our doctors and the pilot program didn't have the budgets to do all those. But we have actually applied for funded research, and we have brought in some geriatric dementia doctors as well as a neuroimaging specialist from NTU, and we will at some point, God willing, get into that funded space where we can actually do that. But again, there's 2 research out there already that shows the neuroimaging for this similar program done in Europe, and we are confident that we can replicate that here when we get the funding to do that further research here. But as of now, what you see is the output, the end result.
Theoretical part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, could we get a microphone to the gentleman in the back, please? Please use the microphones to ask questions. It's for those of us who are joining on Zoom.
Yes, thank you for sharing. My name is W2 Wong. I'm from Kampong, Singapore and West Johor. My concern is what is your ultimate target? We have like 92,000 dementia patients in Singapore. Would this be intended to be implemented nationwide? Are there other parties who are providing similar programs?
So based on what I mentioned just now, if you talk to the AAC managers, there's very few cognitive programs at this point in time. There's very few cognitive programs at any AAC. So if you walk into one now, most of it is physical.
How many cognitive programs are there so far?
I do not know. Based on our conversations with Woodlands, at least, there was a Balik Kampung program. That was cognitive as well, right? But there was a one-off. We asked whether they repeated that. No. Right, Zaiton? Yeah, so it's few and far between. But again, this comes from feedback from the AAC managers, not us. That there's very few cognitive programs.
What is your ultimate objective?
Okay. There are
Thank you.
220 AACs that are going to come up by 2030. We are already at 220. Yeah, 220 by next year. Sorry, not by 2020. Right now we have a 208 today. And again, we talk about scalability from day one. So we're not looking at one-on-one interventions. We're looking at community-based interventions. If you're going to stay at home, this is not for you. If you cannot respond verbally, you need special therapy treatment, etc. But if you are actively in an active aging center, one of the 220, our goal is to be able to scale trainers, cognitive coaches to a point whereby we can send a cognitive coach to every active aging center that would like this program, and of course nursing home and other establishments, again where you have a community that goes down on or can go down on a regular basis. Right? Does that answer your question, sir? Which part does it not answer? So we can only help as many as would be in community. So if you look at 220 AACs, for example, and we haven't done the math, but you can easily do so. And every time we go down, it's one person like a cognitive coach like me or Josephine can take about 10 to 15 people. And once we start a program with one of me, it's 6 months. It's 6 months long.
And what would the fees be for this 6 months? Who pays for this 6 months?
That's a wonderful question. Well, we want it to be a profession because our job is to create employability, at least from the Republic Polytechnic School of Sport and Health, right? We want to make sure that in the future, our students, and I have a student here sitting over there from RP, that he can choose this as a viable a job, right? And we have brought the cost down because this course is currently certified by SkillsFuture, right? Which means that if you're a Singaporean here and you're above 40, you pay 10% of the cost. So if you can get 10 people in any AAC right now, and you're willing to pay the 10%, which is about $200, we will go through with the whole program for 6 months with you, right? So now all those are the mechanics and the operational thing behind it, right? And we are talking to many parties now about how to scale this, and because we are trainers, right? We can scale it at scale if we need and when we need to.
So I think just to clarify maybe David's earlier point, the option for the SkillsFuture, is that for individuals who are interested to become certified coaches, or is that for seniors who are keen to improve their cognitive ability?
That would be for seniors keen to improve their cognitive ability. And we will, again, it's got to be in community because we're not doing one-to-one.
So the SkillsFuture program is in community.
It will have to be in community, which means that any organization, if you run one and you're willing to get the people there to use the SkillsFuture credit, whatever, to pay that 200 and you get 10 people, we will run the program. We can run the program now, again, through the official government channels, because we're all about encouraging people to learn more, right? And again, whatever your age, right? You have 1,500, whatever. And we're saying that, look, you can still learn, right? And there's opportunities to learn, but there is a cost factor attached to it. But because of the funding, at least in Singapore, we have managed to get that cost down because we are able to tap on the national funding agency. And we think there is a meaningful tap on that funding because, again, waiting till 2030 is not an option.
So I think coming to that point that you mentioned, and also about Republic Polytechnic's own ambitions to turn this cognitive coaching into a viable career pathway, could you share a bit more about how RP and how other tertiary institutions should be thinking about equipping the next generation? Because we also talk a lot about the care economy, about the kind of jobs that be created. So because that's a question online about inclusive employment, job coaching, and mentoring. So maybe both of you might like to expound a little bit about the plans.
Yeah, so at the School of Sport and Health, we have we have kind of focus areas, right? Sport coaching being one of them, sport science, etc. And but health, we see health as something which is holistic, right? It's not just about the body, but it's also about the mind. And we see this as a growth area because it's something that hasn't really picked up a lot of attention. Again, if it did, you would see more cognitive programs out there, but you don't. So we think that this is something that is worthwhile creating employment over. And guess what? It's a skill, and any one of you can learn that skill. As much as you wanted to learn how to be a sport coach, if that was your passion, we can teach you how to be a cognitive coach. It's not easy, but it is not impossible to learn. All you need to do is have that willingness to believe that everyone's mind can improve and can be changed. Yeah. So you do CT as well.
Are there pathways for people now who might be interested to train themselves to be cognitive coaches?
Are there pathways for cognitive coaches? We have created the word cognitive coaching. I haven't seen it yet.
So I coined a new word today. Well, I didn't, but
Yeah.
you did. I'm just repeating it.
Again, because we treat sport coaches, but you haven't heard of a cognitive coach. But there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to train the mind the way you train the body.
So if let's say someone wants to play your role as a facilitator, as a coach for a group of seniors? Because that's also a question, in nursing homes, volunteers, how do they get trained to be able to play that role?
We are talking about a professional ecosystem.
Right.
There's one reason why the previous cognitive programs, in my opinion, not RP, right, doesn't work. And that's because you are running a cognitive program and you're saying, can the volunteer come in and do it? Right? If you depend on a whole bunch of volunteer sport coaches, you will never get anyone to the Olympics. Okay. Therefore, there is a space to train someone in specific skill to be able to coach someone mentally as a cognitive coach and be competently trained. So when we train a sport coach and a mental coach and a cognitive coach, we will bring you through the paces of actually demonstrating that you have the competency to run what we do. And only if you can do that, we will give you the license.
Right.
But when we don't want to give you the license, then you walk out there and say, but no one's going to employ me. Right? And no one's going to give me, so we will, at least in the near term, we will make it, we have plans to create something that if we can work with the nursing homes and the AACs and they want to implement this program, right now, the 5 of us are officially trained, so we can go in and run it, and we're more than willing to run it. Once you get beyond 5 to the 220, then we will need people, yes. And we have plans in place and we can convert that pretty quickly. Our plan is that by 2026, we'll have at least 100 cognitive coaches out there trained by us and certified. Now, it's not that we want to control and we are control freaks, right? But at the word start, if we don't control it and anyone says that they can do it, you're in trouble, because if someone walks in there and uses the materials and can't get the same outcomes that we have, then you are diluting and after once the reputation is gone, then you're done for, right? So we're trying to make sure that we create a professional ecosystem from the word go from this. That means we'll only take on people that have shown the competency of being able to coach cognitively. And you're not asking, you don't need to go and get a doctorate. So this is not about becoming a therapist. None of us are therapists, thank goodness, right? We're not therapists, we are coaches. And we know exactly how to coach someone. It doesn't take a 2-year master's program, but it takes a very high intention of really wanting to do this. And at the end of the day, what we learn, and Zaiton, we're more than glad if you come in and take our class as well, you can apply it to other people. It doesn't have to be people who are 70 and above. So we foresee a point where the people in Zaiton's age range will be able to start using these methods of mediation to their grandchildren, right? I'm not sure, do you actually do that to your grandkids now? Ask them more questions, make them think? Huh? So once you get that way of thinking, your whole mind becomes rewired into always questioning, always helping someone to think rather than giving them the answer.
Sometimes they run the homework as well. They look at it, wow.
You've been giving them what we give you. And you don't tell them the answers, right? You don't tell them the answers.
Interesting. And make them think and think a lot. And they were surprised that we can answer some of them. After going through all the exercise, we do. I mean, they find it's a little bit difficult at first, but later on they realize, hey, it's a matter of being patient, understanding, read properly, and that's what they learn.
And I think you found it challenging, your kids found it challenging, and guess what? Sometimes if you go to a cognitive program, you do a memory game, right? Those kind of stuff, join the dots, whatever. But let me assure you that this program, even you have a doctorate and I bring you through it, you will find it challenging, right? So whether you're a doctorate or someone who's suffering from mild cognitive impairment, it doesn't matter. We can adjust it. Why? Because there is a coach there that is able to tone up or tone down the level. And again, it's our responsibility to bring you on that thinking journey. It's not your fault that if you can't do something, we will find a window, and that's what we train. How do you find a window into someone's thinking, even if they are blocked? And that's a skill that, again, we can teach.
Thank you very much, David. In the interest of time, we can take a few more questions. Ma'am, I think the gentleman here had his hand up. Can we do 2 questions, both of you, back to back? Sir, your question, and then...
I'm pulling you back to the point where you say it's about skill development fund. Skill funds, you can have 2 types. one is for 4,000 budget, and the other one is only a few thousand, a few $100.
Yeah.
The one, a few hundred are the common like cooking and all that. We all use that, and some of us have used up all of it. So leaving the 4,000 and say, how do we use? It's in our budget. How say we can't use it? He says, no, you can't. And it's only for people who are taking diploma or degree.
Right.
Where did this come about then? With the $200 that you're talking about?
Okay, let me answer that
yeah.
quickly. You need to ask that question to SkillsFuture Singapore, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, we do know that the 4,000 is for full qualification courses. That means if you come to RP, you take a full part-time diploma, specialist diploma, etc. You have 1,500 that can be used for anything, including this. But again, the moment you're above 40, you only pay 10%. So even if you don't have that credit, you still have, you still pay 10% only, which is a fraction of getting hopefully you consider us professionals to spend 6 months with you, 60 hours. And I mean, at some point we will bring this into a full qual. That's in the plan. And when that happens, you can use your bigger credit. But yeah, any question on why you can't use that 4,000? Yeah, not us.
None of us in the room can answer that.
Hi, I would like to ask, is there any exclusion criteria, and do you have any screening tool if there is? Thank you.
When we did the first pilot, we were bound by our review board to only accept people that had no formal diagnosis of mental conditions, because we're not doctors. But in the public runs, let's say AAC wants to run it, there's no exclusion criteria except that you can communicate, you can respond. If you can't respond to me, that's when you need specialized treatment already. Yeah.
Okay. We'll go to the young man over there and the young lady after that. So just back to back the questions, please.
I'm Regan from Republic Poly. I have a question, which is, do you think that this program or similar programs could potentially help improve health outcomes beyond cognition, and also potentially improve health literacy in older adults and potentially other age groups?
Thank you. And yourself, ma'am?
It's a two-part question, sorry for the big question, but I understand that Singapore is a very diverse country. So since this was a pilot study, in the future, do you plan to take on different culture, like, different people of Singapore? And the second question was that while conducting this, the whole experiment, what were some mental blocks, initial hesitation, and some resistance that you saw in the participants? Thank you so much.
So just a quick refresh. I think the first question from the young man was, you see a future beyond the cognitive side of things, including teaching young elderly about health literacy? I think the young lady was talking about diversity in Singapore. Would that be a consideration for future runs? And also, what were the key? And I think that point about what are the main resistance challenges, that also has come out quite a bit online. So that would be great to hear also.
Okay, other age groups, other populations, yes. Actually, this program and the instrumental enrichment that you saw there has been run over 60 years for younger populations. This is the first time that we are exploring and moving this into the elderly population. Once you gain that skill of being a cognitive coach, you will be able to use this skill to mediate anyone's thinking in any task, right? So it's a pretty powerful skill, and there are obviously special instruments that you can use. Which again, there's so much research out there that shows that you get 3.5 years, 10 years later, whatever, there's still, it sticks, it doesn't go away. And that's because there's no content in it. It's all contentless. It is all focused on how you're thinking to do a task, and the task has no content. There's no math, there's very little language, which is why it's so accessible, right? So any language, any language is not really a barrier, except that you must be able to give me a response if I'm trying to facilitate a conversation with you.
Okay, to address the question from this lady over here, do we plan to take on different cultures, right? So for now, most of us in the team, we are Chinese, so mainly English speaking, and actually our Chinese improved quite a lot after that. And we have one Indian colleague, so she was able, but we didn't really have to translate to Tamil or Malay, because most of them spoke Mandarin, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 can speak English. So most of the time we were conversing in Chinese. But yes, if we are able to have more cognitive coaches come on from different cultures and languages, we'll be happy to do that. And the second question regarding the mental blocks and the resistance that we faced initially. So one thing about a lot of seniors that they think that, okay, I'm old, I'm useless, I can't learn, my memory is bad, and I can't improve. So at the start, there was quite a few of the comments that we got, but slowly we provided a very safe environment for them to share. So we didn't really, we accepted what they shared. If they didn't get the answer, or we will just probe them a bit more, and with more discussions among the peers, I think they started to enjoy the journey. And initially, when they did the LPAT assessments, they were like, oh, I have a headache after this. I don't want to do anymore. But most of them continued. And that led to the very high continuation rate attendance. It was about 90%, which is much better than some of our full-time classes. Yeah, so oh, I hope I don't get into trouble. Okay. So I think it really the activities were challenging enough to get them out of the comfort zone, but there were always the scaffolds, which is the mediators. We were there to support them, to give them examples and share. So it really became a source of intrinsic, we tapped on the intrinsic motivation, such that you actually have some participants who brought back the worksheet to do as their homework. Can you imagine that? Yeah, so it was really amazing. And we were really encouraged by the response to us. Yeah, so we made their life difficult, but at the end of it, you could tell that they had this really great sense of achievement from what they have learned, and by being open, that they can learn. Yeah, I will answer your question.
By the way, after every session, right, they say their brain hurts. Your brain hurts after every session. Not too much. You came back again.
I think having 100% participation for any sort of program, especially one that's voluntary, is a massive achievement. Ladies and gentlemen in the room, I think we have a little bit more time. So do we have another maybe 2 or 3 questions? Ma'am, could we get a microphone to her at the back of the room after that? And then the gentleman.
Seems like more of a preventive program. So would you be able to help those who are in the early stages of dementia?
Okay, so far we have only worked with normal cognition, but we are applying, as David shared earlier, we are applying for research funding to work with dementia patients. Yeah, so we hope to get the funding. So, and yeah, then we can see what are the results from there.
I think the challenge is that only when we have a doctor on board, then we can do it. Yeah. So we have a doctors ready to partner us. So once if the funding clears, we're good to go. And it will only be dementia patients that we are applying this to after that. They worked with MCI patients, mild cognitive impairment. We will, if we get it soon, we'll be the first country in the world to try this on mild and moderate dementia. We said we wouldn't want to go to severe dementia, because if they can't respond, they need help that some of the experts need, and we're not there. Yeah.
So I think the gentleman. So I think maybe, sir, sorry. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a medical question, but maybe if you have some thoughts on it, because I think there are medical definitions of what constitutes dementia, and there has to be tests conducted by doctors, but maybe if you might have anything to add? No, so for their program, because of the nature of it, just to clarify for the audience, they did not display any medically certified cognitive problems, meaning they were not diagnosed. None of the participants were diagnosed with any dementia or cognitive issues, yes.
We did a mini mental state exam. So we only worked with participants who had scores of 24 and above. So they did not show signs of dementia. So it's more normal cognition, our pilot that we work with.
So I think maybe just putting that into some context, I think because of the nature of their study and them as they shared, not being medical professionals, they were working with people who are elderly but not necessarily displaying signs of cognitive decline. So anything beyond what is normal for someone of that age. I hope that clarifies, and I hope I'm correct in sort of clarifying that. Okay, sir, before I come to you, I think we had a couple more questions in the audience because you have asked the questions, sir. I just want to give right at the back, Marian.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask whether there's any follow-up plans to follow after these 6 months. Like what is the plan after that, after they ended the program? How are you working or planning to work with the AAC to continue? But like whether the staff will actually continue working on all these strategies that they learned.
The staff as in?
As in the AAC, how are they going to continue? So after your end the program, how are they going to continue with these cognitive strategies that they learned?
You're talking about the participants in the trial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Madam Saito, maybe you can take this question, which might have to be our last question.
I beg your pardon, what is your question?
So maybe I can help to sort of
Yes,
phrase it a
please.
bit.
Please, what
And
is
after the 6 months, after the program had ended, what have you done to continue with the practices that were taught by the coaches?
Or actually, were the coaches actually follow up with all these participants?
So are the
after
coaches
6
following
months
up
also?
after 6 months?
There's no need for you to follow up. We're enjoying it. Look, you can really go to the center and find out those who participate, they are more alert. There's always a question. And I was surprised and I said, wow, what made you behave this way? They changed their behavior completely. All the other group who's not taking this particular program got a little bit jealous and pissed off. Wow, just because you took that program, you behave this way. Especially when they play rummy, those people who took this program improved a lot. And they said, you should have more of this program for the center. And some of them do get a bit jealous. Why? My name is inside and I'm not allowed in. Actually, they are good and bad about it. So what I say was, look, you have to do a lot of thinking. If you're interested, maybe they might organize another program. That's it. But actually, no, if you are intending to have another program, that means there'll be more response coming in. That's it.
So I think
Sorry,
very quick follow-up.
Sorry,
maybe?
just a quick one. So from a research point of view, we're talking about follow-up. We were thinking about sustainability of the program, like 6 months post, whether these effects carry through. Have there been, I mean, we haven't done it in a suitable population in Singapore, but in the original program, have they seen like 6 months follow-up, the scores have improved or,
Sorry, so in the two European researchers, they followed up, I think, 2 weeks after, and they found that there was consistent maintenance of that cognitive ability. In our case, for the initial program, we don't have a follow-up test, but in our funded research application, we have retention tests happening, including the brain imaging, etc., to make sure that we can measure it at a much more higher fidelity level to make sure that we can measure something. Yeah, but for the pilot program, we're just so happy that we were able to do it, and it took so much time. It really took hundreds of hours of preparation, etc. And what you see is exactly what the results are. I'm afraid we don't have any other follow-up beyond that. But they did ask for version 2.
Yeah.
What is the next? Is there a memory program, part 2? And I said, yes, we are working on that. And when that happens, we can invite them back. But again, the idea is never to lock them in to be with us for long term. Once we effect that change and someone learns how to learn again, not that they didn't know how to before, like Zaiton says, we don't want us to be your crutch forever. We want to give you something, and then that gift keeps on giving because your mind is just amazing.
Well, thank you very much to David and Josephine and to Madam Zaiton. I'm sure every one of us in the room and those of us online will be keeping our fingers crossed that the funding comes through and we can conduct a more detailed research. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this evening's sharing and this evening's presentation. And once again, please join me in thanking our friends from Republic Polytechnic, David and Josephine, and Madam Zaiton, who has very kindly taken time off their busy schedules to share with us the program that they have been running and Madam Zaiton has experienced over 6 months. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, the HEAD Foundation has been really honored and pleasured to have you joining us today at this HEAD Foundation dialogue. But before we end, let me quickly share a little bit about upcoming dialogue, which will be happening in about a month's time. We're looking at something a bit different now. We're looking at the green impact of hydrogen. This is a program we're doing in partnership with Temasek Polytechnic this time. And there'll be more details available soon, but we're going to move over to the next slide, which will give you some idea of how you can stay connected with us. You can follow us on our various social media platforms, get to know us a bit better, learn a bit more about our work. And also with that link tree, we can be able to sign up for a lot of our upcoming talks and our upcoming events. You'll find some of the QR codes outside, but if you like, you may scan them on the screen in front of you. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being a part of this evening. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.